Next news, breaking news.
$124 billion. That's what New York State is burning through on Medicaid every single year. And folks, Dr. Oz just kicked down the door demanding to know where your money is going. The Trump administration's CMS Administrator has officially launched a federal fraud investigation into Governor Kathy Hochul's bloated welfare empire. Let me tell you, the numbers are absolutely staggering. New York spends nearly 80% more per resident on Medicaid than the national average. That's 80%. And now the surgeon who made his name exposing health industry corruption is putting Albany on notice. The question isn't whether there's fraud in New York's Medicaid system. The question is just how deep does the corruption go? And here's why this matters to you, whether you live in New York or not. Every single American taxpayer is subsidizing this potential grift. Federal dollars flow into New York's Medicaid system, which means your paycheck is funding whatever waste, fraud, and abuse has been festering under Kathy Hochul's watch. We're talking about 6.8 million people enrolled in this program with per beneficiary spending that's 36% higher than anywhere else in the nation. And get this, New York made it so easy to qualify for personal care assistance that just being easily distracted could get you a government-funded helper. They've spent $45 billion on personal care services alone in just over 2 years. This is not compassion, folks. This is a system designed to hemorrhage money with minimal accountability. After all we've uncovered in Minnesota's fraud scandal, conservative watchdogs warned this was happening nationwide, and now the Trump administration is proving them right, state by state. Florida's being examined, Minnesota's under the microscope, and New York might just be the mother lode of Medicaid fraud. And speaking of protecting American interests, there is a developing national security story out of Washington the legacy media absolutely does not want you to see. As Iran continues destabilizing the Middle East, the federal government just made a staggering strategic move that could reshape America's entire security posture. Now here's the truth they don't want you to know. Our nuclear submarines, our warheads, our next-generation power grid, all of it depends on uranium, and we import almost every single pound of it from foreign sources. Now, this isn't just about energy independence anymore, my friends. This is about survival, because a nation that can't power its own military doesn't remain a superpower for long, and that's why smart investors are looking at companies like Atomic Minerals, trading as ATMMF in the United States and ATOM in Canada. When national security becomes the priority, domestic uranium production becomes essential. Now, do your own research, but there is a briefing that has been prepared just for you, linked below this video. But understand this, the strategic value of American uranium has never been higher. Now, let's get back to the fraud investigation that has New York Democrats freaking out. Yes, this is what makes the investigation different from the usual government finger-wagging. Dr. Oz isn't just asking polite questions. He's demanding detailed documentation on fraud detection systems, managed care oversight, and corrective actions that New York has supposedly taken. He wants the receipts, folks. As a heart surgeon, Oz said it himself, when the numbers don't add up, you don't ignore it, you investigate. And right now, New York's numbers look like they were written by someone who failed basic math. Now let's investigate what people are saying about this bombshell. Here's what Dr. Oz posted for the world to see. It's time for New York to come clean about its Medicaid program. Today I sent a letter to Governor Hochul demanding answers and detailed documentation about the state's fraud detection, program integrity, infrastructure, managed care oversight, and corrective actions. And he posted this.
Heart surgeons are trained to look at the numbers. When something doesn't add up, you don't ignore it, you investigate. And right now, the numbers coming out of New York's Medicaid program don't add up. New York spends more than $100 billion a year on Medicaid. That's the second highest in the nation. New York's average spending on each beneficiary is over $12,500. That's 36% higher than the national average. As a result, New York's average Medicaid spending per resident was the highest in the country, nearly 80% higher than the national average. Now that alone demands scrutiny, but it gets worse. Personal care services. These help Medicaid patients do something that our families would normally do for us, like carrying groceries. New York State made this screening even more lenient by allowing problems like being easily distracted to qualify for a personal care assistant. And that's led to $45 billion in spending in just over 2 years. New York already has high Medicaid enrollment. And in last year, 5 million beneficiaries, that's nearly 3 out of 4 Medicaid enrollees, received these personal care services. That level of utilization is unheard of and has made personal care services the #1 occupation in New York State. Now, New York has turned this program to help our most vulnerable into a massive jobs program reimbursed by federal taxpayers. Let me touch on 2 other programs. Home health aid payments jumped 65% year over year, twice in a row, even though the number of patients did not increase at that crazy high rate. And adult daycare spending spiked over 100% in the last 3 months, while federal prosecutors uncovered a $68 million fraud scheme involving kickbacks at these adult care centers. Now, this isn't about politics. It's about protecting patients and protecting taxpayers. We owe New Yorkers transparency. We owe beneficiaries integrity. And we owe the American people accountability. When the numbers don't make sense, we ask questions, and we expect an honest answer. Governor Hochul has a month to share a reasonable corrective action plan to fix the fraud, waste, and abuse in New York State, or CMS will start deferring payments to protect Medicaid.
You got 30 days, Kathy. 30 days. Oz dropping the bombshell announcement. Wait till you see how massive the scandal could actually be compared to what we've already uncovered. This could make the fraud in Minnesota seem like a ripple in the pond. New York Post, Dr. Oz launching fraud probe of New York's $124 billion Medicaid program. One observer putting the chilling perspective, but the raw numbers are about to blow your mind. Kathy Hochul's huge $124 billion Medicaid program in New York is now getting a full federal fraud investigation from Dr. Oz. This beast covers 6.8 million people and costs taxpayers way more per person than anywhere else in the country. Now the scale, $124 billion, serving nearly 7 million people, but there's more context about why voters are demanding the investigation. Rich Remedies tweeting at Nick Sorter, I voted for this. Let's get transparency on all government spending, starting with Medicaid. After the Minnesota findings, we know this is fertile ground for massive fraud in every state. Start with New York. Clearly, the public is fired up after Minnesota's fraud revelations. Now we're seeing the political earthquake that this is about to create. Nick Sortor posting that Dr. Oz has officially launched an investigation into New York's Medicaid program. Here is the video that he attached.
Aligned the president and vice president with the governor so they have the same goal. So we've been talking to the states a lot. We are generating some frameworks that we believe states could apply. Medicaid is run by the state. They know their most vulnerable populations well. It's different than Alaska on the North Shore slope where you can't get there this time of year to southern Alabama, lower Alabama, or LA as they call it. But the reality is there are similarities that govern some of these programs, especially the ones that are at high risk. And so we're going to share those best practices. But the techniques that we're using in Minnesota can be applied in other states. But it's the fraud, however, that will drive that. And so there are some states, I mentioned Florida, that's a red state where there's a big fraud problem in the southern part. They're trying to get their arms around it. We've sent a letter to Minnesota, which has a Republican senator. We're very concerned about New York. Where the single most prominent job in New York is a personal care service. Retail is not the top job in New York anymore. And in California, there are more hospices, I believe, in Los Angeles County alone than the rest of the country. So these are aberrancies that are hard for the states sometimes to see, but your first inclination, if you're the vice president and you're running a task force, is to look at those areas and say, how can you ignore that kind of a discrepancy, especially when there's been a massive uptick in some of these services in a short period of time?
Great. We'll take just one more question here, sir.
So you see Dr. Oz there on the offensive. Nick Sorter breaking down the explosive per capita spending data. But wait, you see the official letter. CMS Administrator Dr. Oz notified New York Governor Hochul today, launching an investigation into the state's massive, rife with fraud, $124 billion Medicaid program. Dr. Oz launching the investigation. Now, here's what the establishment media will never tell you about this investigation and why this is happening. See, this is the Trump administration doing exactly what President Trump promised, draining the swamp and following the money. For years, Democrats have built these massive welfare bureaucracies and screamed compassion whenever anyone dared ask where the billions were going. Well, the adults are back in charge now. Dr. Oz isn't some career bureaucrat protecting the system. He's an outsider who built his reputation on exposing exactly this kind of institutional rot. Governor Hochul and her Albany cronies are about to learn what accountability looks like under a Trump administration. And if New York's fraud numbers look anything like Minnesota's, we could be talking about the biggest welfare scandal in American history. The deep state's gravy train is officially derailed. Now, folks, this is what America First governance looks like in action. While the Democrats scream and deflect, the Trump administration is systematically exposing decades of waste and corruption that your tax dollars have been funding. Dr. Oz is just getting started, and I have a feeling New York is only the beginning. So share this video with everybody you know, especially your friends in blue states who need to see where their money is really going. And drop a comment below and tell me, do you think Kathy Hochul will cooperate with this investigation, or will she stonewall and prove that she has something to hide? Yes or no? Let me know. And if you want to wear your support for real journalism that holds these people accountable, check out the Next News merch shelf below this video. Smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember, the truth always comes out when patriots refuse to stay silent. I'm Gary Franchi. Stay informed and stay free.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this. Share this now.